Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Insightful Accountant webinar, your 2021 Technology Roadmap, presented by Micah Thor, sponsored by Tech Guru. Insightful Accountant is an online news and information source written for small business advisors interested in the latest news and offerings in accounting technology. My name is Emily Hedrick, and I'll be your webinar host. If you have any questions during the session, please enter them in the Q&A box, and we'll try to address them. Everyone will receive a follow-up email later today with the recording and presentation. Today's speaker is Micah Thor. As president of nationwide CPA IT service firm Tech Guru, Micah Thor and his team deliver CIO-level strategy to accounting firms seeking innovative technology resources and guidance. Micah's broad sales and operations expertise contributed to Tech Guru's fourfold increase in its client base over the course of 3 years. The company was named among Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies in America in 2017. When not leading the operations of Tech Guru, Micah enjoys indulging in his many hobbies alongside his family: cooking, traveling, and skiing. Thank you, Micah, for being here with us. And when you're ready, you can get started.
Thanks, Emily. It's a pleasure to be here virtually with all of you. And I'd like to start out by explaining what this is. I've taken up some new winter hobbies with my 6-year-old daughter, including ice skating, which is the cause of this little blemish. Thankfully, my mild concussion has mostly subsided, so this should be a pretty intelligible presentation. But just thought I'd answer that question that might be in the back of your mind this whole time right off the bat. So I'm, like I said, excited to be with you today to talk about some technology success strategies for 2021. And I've tried to break this up into 3 kind of easy to digest sections where we're going to identify opportunities and work to transform some of the technology that you've got, and then prioritize some of those changes. So first question that we've got for polling here is, do you have a technology roadmap for 2021? So we will wait a minute here to get results. All right. So as part of the roadmap worksheet here, you should have all received this. We're going to walk through this and just real briefly to kind of give you an idea where to take notes for your kind of your action plan at the end. So right here at the top, these are the issues that we were wanting to kind of pull out today. For example, remote workflows slowed down due to bottlenecks in scanning documents. And then what's a technology approach to current approach to address it, or a potential one, desktop scanners for each staff member. So as we're going through today and things that come to mind through our conversation, just use this sheet to kind of jot down some ideas. Then we're going to talk about, how to break these into priorities and how to write these as goals that are measurable, achievable, et cetera, and kind of how to identify what's a big long-term goal versus a midterm or short-term. Then lastly, we're going to help you break those objectives into more bite-sized chunks that you can chip away at over the course of weeks in a 90-day period. Okay, so first step here, identifying inefficiencies. So here's where we're kind of trying to inspire you to come up with some ideas of where there might be issues that you might not have actually put pen to paper on quite yet. Obviously, front and center here, work from home breakdowns. Beginning of the year, or I should say the beginning of the pandemic, there was a scramble to get everybody working remotely and to kind of Band-Aid things together to make sure that you could continue to access files and software and things like that. What broke down during that process that has still not been addressed leading up to this new tax season? What manual processes do you still have in place where you're taking one piece of information and entering it again into another place because you don't have that integration going? Same thing with duplicate entry? Where are you having to do entry twice as opposed to just entering once and then spreading it across multiple systems? Where do you feel like you're operating in the dark? Where is there a lack of transparency in what staff is working on and where things are at and whether or not people are being productive? This is a major one that we've seen a struggle within firms to get a wraparound with everyone moving outside of the walls they used to inhabit together, and having a high degree of confidence that even though there's maybe some distractions going on at people's work from home environments, they're still getting the work done in a timely fashion, and having leading indicators to show you, okay, it looks like Tom has fallen behind a little bit and we need to shift some work over to Jim or something like that. How are things being handed off seamlessly without being able to walk to the cube next door or to just shout across the office? And then what bottlenecks exist in the process of taking the beginning of a tax return all the way through to billing and reconciliation for accounts receivable? Look at that. What a graphic. Okay, so this is the wheel we're going to work around for the next section here, the different modules that we're going to focus in on.
Hey,
So
Micah,
yes.
I don't think we're seeing the slide that you're on. We're still seeing the 3 steps to tech success, or at least that's
Oh,
what I'm seeing.
how about now?
Nope.
No? Okay, interesting. Of course, it was working in our test, but not
Yep.
live. Do you have the deck?
Yes. Let me just grab it.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
no worries.
Okay. And I'm just going to start on the opening slide and you can just go forward.
Great.
Let me give you control.
Okay, excellent. Doesn't look like...
1 second. I'm so sorry. It's got to let me give you permission. There we go. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So this was oh,
And I did put the worksheet in the chat, so everybody should have the worksheet.
looks like it jumped ahead a little bit here. I'll try not to click too fast. Okay. So this is what the slide that I had just completed going through. I won't go through that again because I've already talked through it, but this is the wheel that I was just starting to talk about when Emily jumped in. Thank you. So support, apps, gear, connectivity, security, and strategy. We're going to zoom in on good, better, best on all of these different items to help bring out some ideas for you to put down on that worksheet as potential issues that we can be working through. All right, so apps. On the good side, we've got current and supported versions. Absolutely baseline to be working in the most current versions of software whenever possible, including things like Microsoft Office, tax software. That's kind of a non-negotiable. You're going to have to run the latest version anyways. But enabling some automation, just starting to enable like maybe calendar synchronization, maybe invoice automation through email, and you're backed up and secure. So you've got some baseline security measures in place with antivirus. You've got a good backup running on all of your critical systems on at least a daily basis. Next, moving down into the better category, you've got your staff well-trained on these systems. You've got everything tightly integrated. You've got a data entry system where it's happening efficiently. There's less of that duplication happening. There's more of that automation in place. And then in the best category, oops, thank you. We're starting to drive some efficiencies. You're having measurable improvements on, from that entire lifespan of a return, going from start to finish, where you're starting to save time, where you're removing those bottlenecks. And that's where that fully integrated solution is going to really come in handy, and running as much as possible natively cloud. Now, on the native cloud piece, what we mean by that is whenever possible, running web-based technologies like Microsoft Office 365, where you're opening it in a browser. All of the different tax software providers out there are developing or have developed their web-based solutions. ProConnect is Intuit's, Onvio is Thomson Reuters. CCH has kind of a hybrid approach with their Access platform. But those are all examples of native cloud-based programs, as opposed to a virtual hosted desktop. Because that's really where we see the future of all technology going, is delivered to you via a web browser, as opposed to that kind of traditional application server model. When you're on that platform and you've got everything open in your web browser, just tab after tab, the great thing about that is all of those systems have a fully integrated back-end system that you can create those efficiencies with, where as you're working through your tax prep, it's updating your practice management software along the way, showing exactly where the status is, entering the time as you're working inside of the file. And then when you finish the work inside of the tax prep, it can be automatically closed out in the practice management, sent over to invoicing, and billed to the client. And then you can automate the billing to the client, and also the reconciliation of that billing as well. So like, you think about all the massive improvements in manual entry and duplication that can happen when you're on a fully integrated native cloud environment. It's really, really powerful, and it's going to be really, really compelling to move to. It's not really a matter of if, but when. Thomson Reuters Suite, not quite there yet. ProConnect a little further along. CCH Access is probably the most developed of the three. So just keep an eye out for those things. They may or may not be available to you now. So how is your app stack? Are you using things like Slack or Teams for internal collaboration? We were real big proponents of Slack, still are. I would say that we've probably shifted over to being a little more passionate about Teams, because everybody already has it with their Office 365 environment. So it's kind of just as simple as turning it on and using it. Client communication, as far as portal goes, we've got a lot of clients using Liscio. There's a ton of products out there. We just cherry picked a few here. Liscio's got a really unique platform in that it really forces communication to happen with your clients in a really secure way. And I don't really need to tell you guys how important that is in this day and age. I'm sure you're painfully aware of some of the risks that are out there. Marketing automation, Active Campaign is a fantastic one that we've been using and helping some of our clients implement. It's intuitive as a marketing automation tool can be, but really, really powerful in how it can help you reach your clients on a regular basis. There's been so many opportunities to communicate with clients this year around PPP and EIDL and whatever other acronym is coming out tomorrow. But there's this opportunity now to continue that engagement with your clients. And I think it's been a really amazing year for CPA firms and technology providers, for that matter, too, to really level up their relationships and go deeper with their clients. I've talked to so many CPAs who have said, this has been one of the hardest years in the history of my career, but it's also been one of the most rewarding. And that's because of the level of engagement that they've had with their clients, and the support and value they've been able to bring them has really exponentially grown this year. So I think, all that to say that I think Active Campaign is a great way to keep that going and to keep providing that value and keep that engagement going with your clients. On the workflow side, Monday.com has been having an amazing year as well in the CPA space, because there's so many people that are trying to get a handle on where are things at, how are we moving things through the firm now that we're all remote, and how can we do it better. And Monday.com is a tool that's going to help you really define that process, but also be able to kind of tweak it and make improvements to it system-wide real easily. On the bookkeeping end, QBO and Xero are a couple of great examples of technology moving to be cloud native and web-based, just like Office 365 and some of those tax softwares that I was talking about. A really interesting piece with QBO and Intuit's Pro Connect is the potential integration between the two, and that you're getting your clients' data right out of their QuickBooks Online into your tax prep software, and some of the efficiencies that you're going to be able to create through there. I know there's a lot of people that use different trial balance tools out there, but we're excited to see where this goes. Having QBO and ProConnect owned by the same company and tightly integrated could be a really, really compelling offering for some people who are evaluating their platforms. On the practice management side, there's a lot of really great options out there. We didn't list just one because of what's happening right now with the shift in applications moving to this cloud-based solution is we're seeing a lot more integration. For example, Onvio practice management, we've seen a lot of our clients implement that over this summer, and that being kind of their first step into that new realm of Thomson Reuters suite is they've started using the Onvio practice management solution with the goal of bringing tax prep over to when it's ready in the next year or two. I saw a demo of how those two can integrate, and it was really cool to watch in one tab how the practice management tool is updating in real time with the tax prep process. Last on here, tax software, I kind of alluded to that already with how all the different major platforms out there are developing or have already developed them. They're web-based native cloud apps. Okay, so gear, Windows 10. If anybody's not using Windows 10 right now, that is an absolute high priority. Windows 7 is end of life. It's not getting security updates. Make sure that you're getting everybody updated to Windows 10. Since we're talking about gear, if you've got a piece of hardware, a laptop or desktop that is Windows 7 and it's not under warranty, this is absolutely your opportunity to replace it. Be aware there are some shortages right now in laptops and monitors, but desktops have to date been pretty easy to come by. And as long as you're not too picky about the model of laptop, you can still get those pretty quickly as well. But if you think that you're going to need something laptop or desktop wise, my advice to you is to not wait and to get it on order now, so that you can get it in place as soon as possible before something fails completely. On the good side too, with device policies, we want to make sure that you've got just the bare minimums on there, that they've got a password requirement. There's maybe a rotation on that password, and there's a lock screen set to go off after 30 minutes of inactivity or something like that. That's especially important with your remote users, because we really don't want laptops being left on and open in an uncontrolled environment for extended periods of time. So keep that in mind. On the better side, this is kind of an unexpected one, in the pandemic world, is ergonomics. How many people are working, at a kitchen table or on a couch or something like that, where, they're ending their day in a lot of pain because they don't have the same, comfortable setup that they had in the office with a good chair, maybe a sit-stand desk, maybe a larger monitor, stuff like that. So we have rolled out in our company some initiatives to help people update their home office equipment so that they're able to be as productive as they were in the office. And not everyone needs the same thing, and that's why we kind of would give them a menu of things to choose from, and some kind of best practices around what to be using. Another thing we've seen, is large or dual monitors. Having multiple monitors is a little bit of a hassle in the office. It's more of a hassle in someone's home environment because, as you know, you get a lot of cords going everywhere and you're disconnecting and reconnecting a laptop potentially. And I'm sure every single person on this call at some point in time has had to reach out to their IT provider so that they could get help, rearranging the monitors to be in the right locations. So there's is a trend that we're seeing where a lot of our CPA firms are starting to buy these large 43-inch monitors that take the place of 3 or 4 monitors. And what's great about them is they have one connection. To the laptop. That's it. There's not multiple connections. There's not multiple monitors to arrange. You've just got this giant piece of real estate that you can have, 4 or 5 different windows, different versions of tax software, et cetera, just all on this pane of glass in front of you, as opposed to on 3 different panes that sometimes go like this or change their resolution or just don't turn on. So if you're looking at updating some monitors, I strongly encourage you to look at that 43-inch option. Beware, talk to your IT professional before you do that, because there are certain applications that require a little bit of tweaking because they tend to want to take up the whole screen, and that can be a little bit problematic if you don't have some software to help you kind of manage organizing your screen there. Next up on the laptops, having company issued equipment for every single employee is really, really important, so that you can make sure you have a company security policy applied and maintained on that equipment. You want to make sure that there's no admin rights, that they can't accidentally install something they're not supposed to, and cause problems. Headsets, huge. Everybody's a lot of people doing Zoom calls or VoIP calls or Teams calls or whatever calls. Having something reliable that is also comfortable and gives you good, clean audio is really, really important. What I'm using is a $40 Jabra Evolve 40 that's wired in. I have gone through in the last year about a dozen, maybe not a dozen, but 4 or 5 different versions of headsets. And finally, after enough issues with Bluetooth not connecting once in a while and batteries dying and things like that, I went old school and got this thing that's cabled in, and knock on wood, we've had one technical issue, so I don't want to jinx myself, but I've been very happy with this, and it's also more comfortable than anything else that I've used. So $40, it's gonna work on any system, and yeah, big fan. Having scanners at home, it depends on your workflow, but there's these small desktop scanners that are a few $100s, and are going to save a ton of time over people having to do something manual, or shift things around to a different resource. One of the big things that we've seen an uptick in with our firms is adding more of these desktop scanners to improve workflow. All right, next slide here. Connectivity. So fiber or cable internet, it's a good option whenever available. Encrypted Wi-Fi with modern and updated devices. So modern Wi-Fi device in people's homes. Excuse me for a second. And then of course, whenever possible, Ethernet. That's always going to be your best bet. If you can cable into your wireless router, cable modem, what have you, that's going to give you the most consistent result. On the better side, having something that's managed and monitored, having guest access that you can shift off other people to, and then of course backup internet connections. On the home front, the backup internet connection is something that on the surface doesn't seem really feasible. However, chances are everyone on your team has a cell phone that was manufactured in like the last 5 years or earlier. That means that everybody has a hotspot, and their plans typically include that as well. For a small fee of maybe $5 or $10, you can upgrade those plans to include more high-speed data on those hotspots, and then those can act as a backup internet connection for people working from home. So I'd encourage you to seek that out and have people test it out, learn how to turn on the hotspot on their iPhone or their Android. It's really not a complicated thing once you learn how to do it. And then if inevitably when they lose internet at home, they'll still have access. That's also something that people can do sometimes within the office. However, if you still have most of the folks in your firm working inside the office, a more elegant and cost-effective solution is to just add a second internet connection from, maybe a DSL provider, or if you've got fiber, add the cable, connection as well. For $100 a month, or maybe $200 if it's on the higher end. If you use that one time per year for one day of internet outage, it's paid for itself. So I think it's a no-brainer. And most modern business class firewalls have the capability to automatically fail over between those connections. So chances are you already have this technology sitting in your network closet. It's just a matter of getting another service put in there and plugging it in and configuring it. So on the best side, we've got secure Wi-Fi for home offices. This is a newer concept, and that some firms are moving to we're going to provide your entire infrastructure in your home. And we're going to also, maybe provide a failover internet connection as well, and that we're going to pay for a dedicated connection in your home, and then we'll set it up in a way that you could fail over to your personal connection. And then using VPN for travel. You know, that's one that I actually pulled off the slide and put hotspot instead, and updated that. And that, depending on your application stack and how you're remote accessing, VPN may or may not be a useful security methodology. But what is, I think a better practice when you go back to traveling, or if you're traveling now, instead of using hotel Wi-Fi, coffee shop Wi-Fi, things like that, using that hotspot on your phone. Typically, it's going to be a more reliable and faster connection, and it's absolutely more secure. So kind of a win-win. All right, security. We'll talk a little more about that. So written security policy within the firm, secure client communication policy, and that how are we going to deliver files to our client? What is the expectation on the client end of how they're going to send that back? And then standard security practices in place with lock screens, antivirus, update cycle, things like that. Moving down into the better category, you've identified a technology security leader within the organization. You've got physical and administrative controls in place, and you've conducted a annual cybersecurity assessment, and you're gauging where you're at right now against a set of guidelines. And in most cases, we're recommending what I believe it's the IRS Form 557 security guidelines is a great starting point. Maybe not the end all be all, but certainly a good thing to just pull up quick and work with your IT professional to find out, all right, where are we at in regards to the 4557 guidance, and make educated decisions about whether or not you satisfy some of those outstanding issues. Moving down into the best category, you're doing some proactive security awareness training, something like Know Before or WebRoot's cybersecurity training. This is where on a regular basis, typically monthly, people are getting, something like a fake phishing email, where if they fall for it and click on the link, it takes them to a training module and shows them what to look for. In addition to that, there's videos that they're being sent about, hey, did you know that this is a new threat that CPA firms are facing? And watch out for this style of email too, or this phone call, or this and that. The interesting and challenging thing about security is it's evolving. What we're talking about today is no longer going to be applicable in 2-3 months, because they keep getting better and more sophisticated. So that's why having a proactive security awareness plan in place that is ongoing and regularly updated, I think, is really, really critical, and puts you in kind of that best in class level for security. Regularly updated security policies as well. So having a partner who is in that space, that is seeking out thought leadership around what are the latest security policies that we should be implementing, and helping you create a roadmap to implement those things where you're outstanding. And then, of course, training clients and staff regularly. And I really emphasize the clients too. And I know a number of you are probably smiling right now, thinking about how you can lead some of your clients to water, but they're not always going to drink it. But really, trying to find client portal tools, different pieces of technology where you're touching the customer, that are as intuitive as possible, and then just kind of explaining to them why these things are important. I've found whenever I'm having a technical conversation with somebody, starting with the why we're doing this, maybe using a little bit of fear tactics if you think that's effective. It really helps with them embracing it. And I think one of the silver linings of the last 12 months is that people have been adopting technologies that they wouldn't have adopted otherwise. We've got a lot of geriatrics using Zoom for the first time, and I was just talking to someone who's in charge of donations for their church and the kind of the weekly, tithe and that sort of thing, and that they had a lot of people that were dropping off checks, and when the doors closed and they went virtual, there was some concern about, hey, how are we going to fund this if we can't receive checks from people in person, and they were pleasantly surprised that their congregation started, using digital payment methods. So I think you'll be surprised that your client base has actually evolved a lot in the last year from a technology perspective. Strategy. So on the good side, you're having regular vendor discussions. And I think of these as, a lot of times prompted by the vendor, in that you're having a conversation with your Thomson Reuters rep, for example, once a year, because they want some money from you and they want your renewal. Same thing with your internet provider, your copy scan fax provider, stuff like that. So that's pretty baseline, and you're going to get some good information from them. But to be fair, it's pretty biased. They're going to be pushing what they know, which is their products. You're having technology conversations with the staff, and you're doing some issue tracking with your IT professional, in the form of opening tickets and tracking different issues as they have patterns. On the better side, you've got a written technology plan that you're executing on. You've identified a technology budget. You're allocating money to do the things that are in your plan, and you've got someone on your team, an internal technology advocate, who is held accountable to move that plan forward, and you're meeting on a regular basis. On the best side, you've got a quarterly technology strategic planning session happening with an IT professional who is acting as your virtual CIO, who is out there, not just in the Thomson realm, not in the Intuit realm, but in all the different realms, learning about what trends are coming, what software platforms are best in class, what areas are they good, are they strong or weak in, and helping you kind of create that short list of recommendations of, all right, here are the 3 applications we're going to look at this summer for practice management or for workflow or client portal. So having an advocate who is getting empirical data from a set of clients that can say, yes, we have seen this thing through multiple tax seasons and it holds up and works as advertised. Those recommendations then are supporting your business growth and are getting that measurable return on investment. The really unique opportunity with a CPA firm is when you embrace technology and when you're using truly best-in-class tools, you have a strategic advantage over your competition. And if I think back to the early days of technology in CPA firms, you may not believe it, but I've actually been working with CPA firms for almost 20 years. There was this gradual change that happened from a lot of typewriters and whiteouts and pen and paper to all on a server, and now kind of the next iteration is all into the cloud. And I used to have I give a presentation. We had a slide of someone with a giant slingshot and some filing cabinets launching it into a cloud. And I think about another way you could do that picture is someone taking a slingshot and launching files into a black box, because that's what it was 20 years ago. People were moving their files from a file cabinet into a server that they couldn't they couldn't hold in their hand anymore. It was this, mythical thing that stored data and somehow did their job faster. And the reason that they did that is not really because they wanted to, or they were comfortable with it. It was because someone down the street did it, and they were now able to do twice as much as your firm was, and be able to hire the best people because their profitability was going way up. So technology, I think, has really pushed the CPA industry along, or in some cases maybe dragged them along, because someone is on the early adoption side changes the game for everybody, changes what the cost per return should be, to still maintain a certain level of profitability. And that's why we think that having this quarterly strategic planning is really, really important, because you don't want to be on the bleeding edge. You don't want to be on the late adopter side. You want someone who's going to be able to help you navigate those decisions, make decisions for your firm that are going to be impactful, and not frustrating, and keep you very relevant and profitable. So, bringing things on the support side, baseline here is you've got a contract in place. You can, it's an all-you-can-eat plan. Get as much help as you need whenever you need it during business hours. They're helpful and they're responsive. On the better side, they're being more proactive. They're bringing some ideas to you. They're doing some, after hours maintenance and monitoring. They're taking steps to prevent things from breaking, as opposed to just being responsive when they do break. And then they're supporting everything in the environment. They're really your outsourced IT department, and that if it's got buttons and lights, you call them and they take care of it. On the best side, taking it to the next level is they understand your business. And I'll talk a little bit about our journey here, and why we decided, as an IT provider who was a generalist for a long time, to become a specialist. This may sound a little bit self-serving, but I'm also hoping that you can take something from this, if you're considering a specialization, or if you happen to already have concentration in a particular industry. This might tip the scales a little bit in favor of you wanting to go deeper with your clients. So rewind several years ago, we saw this commoditization of technology services, just like there's been some commoditization in tax returns, for example. And we asked ourselves, how do we fight commoditization? How do we continue to be a value player in the marketplace, and really differentiate ourselves with clients and with prospects? And specialization was the obvious choice, and the CPA industry was not necessarily an obvious choice, but turned out to be a great one because of the demand that is placed on technology within CPA firms. Now, keeping things running is super important, obviously. But what is game changing, and what will get people excited about working with a technology provider, is when they're coming to you with ideas, was when they're helping push you in a direction of growth from a technology perspective, and helping you, sift through all of the noise that's out there, take empirical data from their client base of CPA firms and say, this is the best cloud-based, fully baked technology platform for a CPA firm. Don't just take my word for it. Let me connect you with a dozen of our clients who are also using it. Being able to have that level of conversation with your client, I think is really, really game changing. And so I say that just to kind of talk about what is out there for IT support for CPA firms. But, as I said, also, to kind of maybe inspire you, where are some of those opportunities within your own client base where, okay, we've got a high concentration of dentists. Let's maybe start more intentionally marketing towards that, and build up our expertise that we already have, by just being more intentional about going to their conferences, reading their magazines, going to their association meetings, and getting more and more clients in that space, so that when we're having strategic planning sessions with them, we can speak their language. We can talk about what types of software is out there. And if you think about, as a CPA firm, we work with IT providers focused CPA firm. They're able to look at our books, they're able to look at our P&L and say, here's where you guys are best in class, here's where you're good, and here's where we think you could probably improve things a bit. To have that level of conversation with our CPA firm, we're not, the only person that's going to take us away from that CPA firm is someone who can make the claim that they know somehow more about our industry. Price becomes obsolete. The value proposition is undeniable that they're uniquely positioned to advise our company on how to grow and how to manage our finances. All right. On this slide here, we've got a offering for you. If you go to techguruit.com/checkup, we've got a free self-assessment questionnaire that asks very, very high-level, non-technical questions about your firm and how things are operating, how people are feeling about technology, how it's enabling your business to succeed, and it gives you a score. And I think this is going to really help you establish where you're at now, and help you build out your issues list to get ideas of, oh, we've got some issues around communication or around workflow or something like that. And then what you can do is, after tax season, after the summer months, take this assessment again after you've implemented some technology and see, okay, did we move the needle on that? And if so, all right, what now has bubbled up to the surface as our next thing that we're going to look at? Because guess what? This is something that you don't ever just get done working on. Unfortunately, technology is ever evolving and improving, and therefore this is something you've just got to create as a process within your organization to be evaluating, where you're at, and up against what's out there and where you could be. So when you've got a moment, go ahead and fill that out in your spare time. It'll email you a copy of it, and I think you'll find some really, really useful stuff in there. So step 2, transform issues into tech objectives. So we've been trying to give you some ideas of what are the issues you can be putting down on your form for the first chunk of this meeting. Now we're going to just give you some ideas of what some of the technologies and solutions are out there that might include better use of technology. It might be something that you're already doing, but hopefully give you some ideas. So I've been quoted a few times as saying that if we didn't have a pandemic, this would have been the year of SharePoint. Every single firm that we work with that is not on SharePoint, it is on the top third of their technology strategy priority list, because 99% of who we're working with are using Office 365 for email, which means they already have SharePoint, and a lot of firms don't even know it or know what it is. And what this does is it takes all of your files from your shared folder or your mapped drive and moves it into a web-based solution. So it's future-proofing this, and it's solving some issues around remote working, as well as transmitting files around. So with SharePoint, think of it as taking that folder that you click into from a map drive and putting it into a web browser, where you can double click on a Word doc and it opens up another tab inside of your web browser and gives you an online version of Microsoft Word. And what's cool about that is you can send somebody a link and they can actually jump into that same document in real time and collaborate with you on it. You can do that with Excel, you can do that with PowerPoint, the whole stack. What's great about it is actually, I guess we've got a polling question here. I'll pause for a second here for that. How do you access your internal firm files? Word, Excel, PDF. So are you using a VPN, log me in, virtual desktop, SharePoint, as I started talking about, or do I just not have any access? I'll wait for a minute here for the results. Okay, pretty good number of SharePoint folks. Still a lot of VPN, which doesn't come as a surprise, and then virtual desktop as well. At least no one answered, I don't have any access. So that's that's good. I think, if we were having this conversation the the beginning of 2020, I'll bet that number was a lot higher at the bottom there of I don't have any access. So regardless of whether you're using a VPN, using a virtual desktop, or LogMeIn or something like that, SharePoint is the future of file storage, and that Microsoft is really, really pushing people to start using Office 365 for their entire suite of Microsoft applications. A few reasons for that. Number one, they're going to be able to deliver the best and latest technology by having it always up to date. There'll no longer be this, update cycle where you've got to have a maintenance window and take everything down. We're going to go from Office 2016 to whatever, and it's going to be really disruptive. It's a steady stream of constant updates and slow changes to the application. So big improvement there. The collaboration side of it, as I was alluding to, massive improvements there. Accessibility, all you need to do to get to stuff from home is the login via a web browser or even on your phone. You skip over all that stuff with VPN and remote desktop and so on. And then I think, maybe the most relevant to this conversation today is that it's got integrations with all the different other cloud-based apps. If you've got a practice management solution or a client portal solution that's web-based, if they haven't built a connection to SharePoint, it's in the works and it's coming any second now, because it is just that level of standard. And then once again, the most beautiful thing about this is if you've already got Office 365, you already have this. It doesn't cost you anything more. So certainly worth putting it on your list of technology objectives. So next up, paper stack and workflow management. As I was talking about before, this has become really important with more remote work happening. And with firms wanting to become more sophisticated on workflow and looking at where are things in the pipeline as far as start to finish. I'm going to just speed up here a little bit to make sure we get through everything. So too much paper from clients getting bottlenecked at the office. So having those desktop scanners at home offices, having people using client portals, talking to your clients about how to use app-based scanning tools that are out there. Sometimes if it's not a lot of stuff, they can just snap a photo of it and text it or email it. Kind of removing that bottleneck of working with paper as much as possible. And I think client portals a big component of this. Lattice is a tool that was developed from the folks at Slack. And if you're familiar with the Slack logo, you can kind of see how it's sort of disassembled and rearranged the Slack logo into something different. So the folks at Slack realized they had this virtual workforce that was maybe lacking a little bit in engagement. And so a few people broke off and started this company Lattice to help improve employee engagement through surveys and management tools, goal setting, things like that. We've been using it internally now for about 6 months. And what's kind of, I think, really, really powerful is you start out with that baseline, and that you have your whole team take a 5 or 10 minute survey, and they go really, really deep, and there's an opportunity for them to comment on things, and you get scored in like 8 or so different areas, and you can kind of look at, okay, here's where we scored low, here's where the comments are. So then you can communicate to your team, all right, this quarter we're going to be working on work-life balance, right? Here's the initiatives, here's the things that we're doing to work on that, with really the ultimate goal to create higher employee satisfaction and higher retention, and build culture within an organization that might be a little more virtual than it was in the past. Even if you're not virtual, a lot of us are introverts, and this gives them a voice to connect with the company in a way that wasn't necessarily possible in the past, because you might have some people on your team that don't feel comfortable in a meeting, raising their hand and saying, I'm really getting burnt out with my workload. So you want to find that stuff out earlier rather than later, so that you can take steps to address that, shift work around, identify different technology tools to help you with improving those engagement scores. Then it does a pulse. After you do that bigger assessment, it does, like a weekly or a monthly pulse, depending on what cadence you set, that asks, things that are maybe focused in on that area that you're taking an initiative in. So really, really cool tool, easy to implement, and highly impactful. All right, so on to step 3 here. This is where we're going to help you prioritize and take action. Compartmentalize the 3-year, 1-year, and 90-day goals. So 90-day goals, are something that are much smaller in undertaking. Moving to a new tax prep software is at least a 1-year goal, or potentially 2 to 3, because you've got a vetting process, you've got a testing process, you've got a training process, you've got to get this thing picked, at the beginning of tax season to start implementing in the spring. So let's say that you want to move from Thomson Reuters to CCH Access. That's a decision that I think you need to sign on the dotted line at the beginning of the year, and then have your process start April 16th, really, with the team lined up and so on and so forth. So if that's a goal that you put on the list to keep looking at every 90 days, and make sure you're tracking towards that as a 2022 or 2023 goal. On the 1-year side, these are, it could be something like a lattice implementation. Like, we want to improve, actually, I'll jump down here for a second and talk about the SMART criteria. I'm sure, oops. Oh, Emily, could you back that up for me? I don't think I can back up the slide. Okay, never mind. I got it. Okay. So SMART goals, I'm sure a number of you are familiar with this, but for those who aren't, they're specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and timely. So, for example, you could have a specific goal of improving employee engagement by X number of points, that's the measurable part, by 2022. That's the attainable and timely part of it, and the results oriented, in that you're going to move the needle on this one segment of employee engagement that you got from this survey. And then every 90 days, you've got an initiative like, okay, we're going to evaluate this practice management tool so that we can better distribute work around the company. And then the next 90 days, we're going to test it. Then the 90 days after that, you're going to implement it and train on it. And then the following 90 days is more just kind of tying a bow on it before tax season starts. So that's an example of taking a 1-year goal and breaking it down into 90-day tasks that are going to move you to that very SMART goal. At the end of the year, you're going to be able to say, this was done. Without question, we hit this goal. So if you're not using SMART goals within your organization, I'd strongly encourage you to do that. It's a very satisfying thing to, at the end of the year, look at that and be like, we definitively improved or solved that problem. So picking that date, ranking the order of priorities from biggest to lowest impact, picking those, and then, if something doesn't make it into the 3 to 5 things that you're going to do, hang on to it. Right? Keep it for next year. Things are going to happen during tax season. You're going to add to that list, and then meet with your IT professional to strategize in May and say, all right, what do we think as a team here are the 3 to 5 most important things we should be doing in our off season? And then, if that stuff continues to fall to the bottom of the list, what I found with our clients is eventually those things become irrelevant, or something evolves within the organization or within the technology realm that makes it obsolete, and you get to just delete it off the list. So, also rewarding. So the reason we pick 90 days is because the human brain starts to lose focus every 90 days. And like clockwork, we see this with our clients and within our own organization, that as you're getting to the 80th day, you're all starting to kind of go off in different directions, and people are starting to get a little cranky, and there's something you got to bring it back. So bringing it back in, having that meeting, getting things lined up for the next 90 days, getting everybody synced up and kind of inspired is a great cadence. I realize there's not an easy way to do this with a tax season that spans more than 90 days. So we kind of modify this sometimes with firms that have super busy tax seasons and can't take an hour, in the middle of it to meet and plan. Go for 3 in the summer months, or possibly 4 if you've got a big undertaking like you're switching tax software. You're probably going to want to have 5 or 6 actually in a scenario like that. 1-hour meetings, that are alongside the project status meetings. These are just, all right, let's look at the entire stack of things and what's being impacted by these changes. What are some of the unexpected things that we want to be solving for through this major shift? All right. So lastly, don't go it alone. We're here to help you plan, implement, support, and secure. I've got a link to that checkup again, which I think is a great tool to use to kind of establish some of these issues, to get your baseline and help you kind of measure some of the results that you've got in front of you. Let's see here. All right. We've got a little bit of time for Q&A. Were there any chat messages that came through that, Justin, maybe you wanted to?
Looks like we have one question from Derek. He said, thoughts on a Mac, do you recommend or discourage?
I'm on a Mac. I love my Mac. I'm a Mac enthusiast. However, you're going to have to adapt every time you use a Mac. If you're on, say, the Thomson Reuters suite, if you're on, okay, so a better answer would be it depends. 9 times out of 10, it's more trouble than it's worth to be running a Mac in a CPA firm because the software doesn't natively run on the Mac. Now, I'll put an asterisk after that, and that if you're running all web-based tools, then it's possible that you could run just as efficiently on a Mac. But if you've got a piece of software that has to be installed on a PC, using a Mac is going to create some extra work and some probably unnecessary issues. And then they're also a little more expensive. So it's kind of like, how do you justify that extra work and extra cost? 99% of the time when we go through it with a client, they end up getting a PC, as much as it hurts me to say that because I love Macs. So hope that's helpful. Any others?
Looks like we've got another one from Margaret. She says, how do you get buy-in from the team to implement technology? It's great to have all the technology, but if people use the old methods, it's discouraging.
Yeah. I mentioned, so starting with why, we used to, years and years ago, migrate people to, a new email platform, for example, that was going to be exponentially better, way more reliable, way more secure. It was going to synchronize with their phones. It was like, you have to do this. You can't keep using the old school email that you have to delete your inbox every 30 days or you stop getting messages, that kind of thing. And so we would start with a conversation about here's the problems that the organization is facing right now. We are losing emails. We are less secure. Go through the list of issues that actually they probably brought up to you, their own gripes about whatever it is that you're using, and talk to them about, all right, here's the solution. Here's what this technology is going to do. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's what the path forward is going to be. We want to get a couple of champions to test it out, and we love to get whoever that, maybe you have 1 or 2 users in the environment that's a little more vocal than others, and maybe a little more demanding on the technology. Get them to be the ones testing it so that they get plenty of time to get comfortable with it and can actually maybe even become the champion and the advocate for it. So you can kind of turn that on its head, and that they can go from being the resistor to the evangelist. But yeah, what's always helpful for me too, anytime we're looking at a change, and I always ask my team, why are we doing this? What's the return on investment? What's the problem that we're solving? Because that's all the technology really does at the core, is it solves a problem that you have, right? Hope that's helpful.
Looks like we have one more, and it says, timeline suggestions for implementing Lattice.
Yeah, I would say that's a great one to do. Well, I mean, is it the best one to do April 16th when everybody's like just totally drained and you put this like 10-minute quiz in front of them? You're probably going to get, maybe a slanted result on the maybe work-life balance question. So, right now might not be a bad time to do it. Otherwise, maybe a little bit after a deadline, a few weeks after a deadline, and then preface it with people that don't just think about the last week or the last month. Think about the whole year. And I think, Lattice does a nice job of framing things in a way that is more high level and will keep people thinking on that kind of more global scale. But we have strategically not done it, during tax season, which is also our busy season, because we don't want the results to be skewed, too much for one particular item. So that's my thoughts there.
All right, I think that's all we have for questions.
Great. Well, I'm available to you via email. You can schedule a call on our website too. Right on the front page, there's a intro call button. Happy to talk to any of you about anything, anytime. This is kind of my I have a lot of downtime during tax season because I'm on the more biz dev side and conference speaking side. So definitely pick my brain. I'd love to chat with you anytime about what you guys are thinking about doing. So thanks for your time today.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Great presentation, Micah. Thank you
Thanks, Emily.
everyone for joining us today. I will get the webinar recording and hand out to everyone here later today. Thank you all so much, and we hope to see you at the next Insightful Accountant webinar. Have a good day.